Click and go live, guys.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Africa Design. We've got Guidione Machava with us, who is the founder of World Class Designer Conference and School. He's an incredible designer. He's full of stories from UX to design as a whole. What is design? Asking questions about how design should be used as a bigger tool for collaboration. So we're really excited to have you here, Guidione. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for making the chance for this interview. Very looking forward to it.
Thank you for joining us, Guidione.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we have Naitiamo with us as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so really there's a lot we wanna ask you about. We want to ask about World Class Designer, but first of all, to find out how did you get into design? And you're someone who in your TED talk you mentioned that it's trusting your instincts that has guided you and where it's taken you. So how have your instincts guided you to become a designer?
I'm a bit afraid now because you saw my TED talk, so I'm kind of intimidated. That was so long ago. So
has something changed?
Not necessarily. No. First of all, I was intimidated because Naitiamo read the article I wrote at the summer of my last year, which I don't remember what I wrote. And now you watch my TED talk, so I'm like, okay, what these people know about me?
It's on the internet, and we recommend everyone else check out the TED talk. It's captioned in English, and the articles, you can translate them and understand them from Portuguese.
Yeah. So what? Sorry, I ended up getting a bit lost here. What was your question?
So you talked about your instincts guiding you throughout. So how have your instincts guided you to become a designer?
I'm an economist by training. So I ended up working as designer without knowing that I was working as designer, because in Mozambique I founded the Mosdas, which ended up becoming the biggest developer community in the country, and I started as a front-end developer. But on that time, I was already studying economics at university. But in my group, I always had this feeling of trying to become the best in the group. And I knew early on that I wouldn't be the best developer there because everyone was way better than me, coding. So I ended up becoming the person who was the bridge between the developers and the users, right? So over time, I ended up learning that itself was a field and was called UX design and what's called design. So that was the time that I decided to spend a bit of more time on it and trying to learn a bit more. So I ended up becoming designer, self-taught designers in the first 2 to 3 years of my career. And last year, no, actually 2 years ago, I applied to do my honors at university in South Africa to study design. I end up not finishing because I get bored, but I've learned a lot during my process there.
And then you studied economics as well?
Yes. I'm formally an economist.
How has that given you an advantage or taught you something that you may not know as a designer otherwise?
I think so now I can talk about the business of design and design of business. There is a difference between two. So what allowed me to to see on the community that I've created, when 6 years ago, we end up becoming profitable. We end up having the World Bank, UNICEF as clients, doing projects for them. And I believe that if I didn't have my economics background, I wouldn't be able to make a community a business, because I end up understanding things in a larger scope. So I understand accounting, I understand law, I understand business. So that gave me a big advantage because like in design, when you like designing an interface, because we design interface for softwares, right? People tend to focus on like how beauty like the software looks or how fast it's performing. Like for me, I see things in a completely different manner. So for me, it's mostly how can we convert this feature into business, how this bring value to the client, and how people will pay for this. So like a lot of designers need training to be able to think like this. I think like this by default. So I've managed to bring business to design. So I think that gives me like some leverage.
Yeah, really valuable for designers and essential, really. It's
Yeah.
no longer optional for creatives to understand business.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you, I don't know if it's whether you used your time during the pandemic or just before to write a book, Design Sutra.
Yes. Actually, like the story of the book was funny because I ended up using the pandemic. So like it was funny the way I ended up like I mean currently in Mozambique, but on the last 4 years I lived in South Africa. So I was about to attend. I came from Italy from a conference there, and I was about to travel to Brazil, right? Like to a conference. So I came to Mozambique to get my visa because it was easier and faster this way, like coming like from this side. But I ended up in getting stuck in the country because of the pandemic. So like on the first month, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a month, and this is gonna like become normal again, and then I'm gonna go back to South Africa. Okay, and then 2 months out, like 3 months, 4 months, I was like, okay, things seem like not changing, so I have to do something. So it was during that time, so I ended up taking the opportunity that I was home and end up writing the book. So like my initial idea with that book was I wrote 57 articles to publish during a year, right? So because I really like to do things in advance. So like during the year, we'll just have to publish like week over week. In a year, you have like 52 weeks. So we'll have like articles for the whole year. But all of those articles were in Portuguese. But during my career, I decided that I wouldn't write in Portuguese anymore. So because I wanted to focus in a broader audience, because I also wanted to learn more English. So I decided I would start like writing in English. But the thing is, I've had written like these 50 plus articles and I had no idea what to do with them. And all were about like design principles. So to not waste to not like take the time that I spent writing all those articles to trash, I end up like rewriting most of them to convert them into a book. So this is where the idea of the book came from. So I spent around like 2 months like reviewing everything end to end to be able to convert all that knowledge to make like timeless, because articles the way you write articles are different from the way you write books. So I had to convert most of them to make sense in a book perspective. Yeah.
So then,
And sorry,
sure.
sorry.
I was going to ask about the articles first before going into the book, because really it's something as well that a lot of creatives can learn, and preparing in advance and writing 52 or 57 articles so that you can publish them across the year. How did you do it? Did you batch them, or what was your process in creating them?
I do like this is funny because I don't think I know how to explain this in a logical manner. So I have bursts of energy. Example, I'm recording my podcast, like the World Class Designer podcast, and I'm recording 20 episodes. I want to do binge listening. So I'm copying Netflix. They do binge watching. So basically they launch a series all at once. So I want to use the same for for podcasting. So because I don't like waiting, and I think it's painful for me having to wait like a week to launch something else. So I'd rather record everything and launch it once, because my brain in a specific times work really fast and then it's just shut down for like 2-3 weeks and I can't do anything. So I take that opportunity to do everything I can when my energy are really high.
That's really, really important. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's as well something that is really beneficial to whenever producing things. If you can create in one go and then produce in one go, absolutely.
Yeah. So like I'm gonna launch all the episode at once, because something that I've learned also is different people have different tastes, and if you like because I've launched the first season like months ago, and it has like 12 episodes. And something funny about podcasts is your audience grows over time. You don't get audience from the episode you launch, because it's audio format and people don't consume audio in the same way they consume video. So you just have to have things there and people gonna like listen when they have time. So I was like, okay, if people do consume this way, why do I have to launch like week over week? That seems like too much work for me.
Yeah, great idea. And we really recommend the World Class Designer podcast, guys. Check it out.
Nice.
Netiamo?
Gideon, you said that you translated everything you wrote from Portuguese to English. So English seems to have been your kind of second language. How did you get to learn about it, and what's your plan so far?
No. Like for the book, I didn't translate, right? So like all the articles are written are in Portuguese, and the book itself is in Portuguese. So, but the way I've learned at school, but mostly was like talking to people and reading article. Yeah, I just putting myself out there and making mistakes.
Wow, you're very fluent in your English.
So, to be honest, I still don't feel comfortable talking English.
I read in your blog that in 2020 you traveled to 4 new countries and 5 new cities. How did you get into that, and how was the experience?
So I always wanted to travel to Europe. Was a dream of mine. Like I think in a different way from other people my age, because they dream having like fancy cars, like big houses, parties. Like for me, it was like when I have money, I want to travel Europe. I want to go on a trip by myself and meet random people all over the world. So when I did that was like a dream that came true to me, because I never thought I'd be able like to travel to Europe. So I had to have like I think my first trip I did my international first trip when I was 22 or 23. I'm not sure anymore. I'm 28 now. So I never had this opportunity to travel like all over the world. And like for me, it was a really, really nice experience. Like my partners know that work who are working with me now at the World Class Design Conference. Two of them I met them in Italy on that trip that I did. So when I decided to do like this trip, I didn't know anyone there. So I went to Portugal, Spain, France, and Italy. I didn't know like literally anyone. So for me, it was like, let me go there, see what the world has for me, and yeah, and it was a really really fun journey. Like little, I think it was one of the best thing I've ever done in my life.
What did you learn from those trips?
First of all, like I always wanted to become like a world class designer. Like, so you know, like being African, being black, and being a designer is very challenging because you don't have references in our field. And what I've learned, my number one lessons, I always wanted to become one of the best in the world, because people don't expect like people like me becoming a reference in the design world. And the first thing that I've learned when I traveled to Europe was, okay, becoming the best in the world is gonna be harder than I thought, because I saw like really good people, like great designers. Like I thought I had everything I needed, but I ended up realizing that there are other things that I needed to have that I still don't have. So I'm on my way to building that. So it was like, Well, I attended Iteration 20. Like actually, this realization started when I was in Lisbon. Like because I tried to like attend events, meeting other people, like, and the environment was completely different. Like the way people treat design, the way people treat business, the way people networking. I was like, this is completely another level, and it's gonna take me a while to catch up and to be able to be like this. So it's something being like the best designer in Mozambique, to be the best designer in Africa, but being the best designer in the world, oh, it's a completely different league. So I was terrified.
That's really interesting. Are there some interesting designers that top of your head you met during the trip?
So like I attended Intuition 20, so I've met a lot of people, but something funny that happened on that event is I've met like a lot of people that I consider my idols, like in the design world, but I was not impressed by them. But on the other side, I was really impressed by people my age. Like they were super smart. I was like, how come you can be like this smart? And some of them were like younger than me, so like even for my the first season of my podcast, I wanted to interview these like senior designers, head of design from big tech companies all over the world. I was like, no, 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 I'm not doing this because these people are a bit boring, and they don't have a fresh perspective, if I can say, because I felt that they were in the industries for too long, that they kind of lost humbleness, and even the vision, you feel when someone is trying to be something else, right? So, and I felt that people my age were really more honest, and the way they see the world was completely different. So that was like one of the biggest lessons that I had there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that we can learn from anyone we meet in the world, and a lot of the time those people who are just starting out and pushing really have a lot of fresh ideas and need to be listened to, especially by those who are becoming more established or have been established for many years.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you really, with the world-class designer, it's like it really is clear what you're trying to achieve there. It's such a great identity for it. And it's something that we're always talking about, is that bringing that level of design, and the people are already there, the talent is already there, so it's just about showing the rest of the world as well.
Definitely, definitely. So
So
basically, this
yeah.
is what we're trying to achieve with the World Class Designers Initiative.
So
Yeah.
do you want to tell us about that then? Maybe you've mentioned that you've met some of your partners in Europe. How did that come about through the conversations with your partners?
So so one thing, like for me, the Europe trip was very intentional. So when you want to become, like when I moved to Mozambique to live in South Africa, like in Mozambique, I kind of reached my plateau in terms of like professional success, at least for me. And when I went to South Africa, I was like, I want to become the best designer in South Africa, maybe in Africa. But when I was in South Africa for like 1 2 years, I was like, this might be easier than I thought, right? I need something more. I need something, not that I end up becoming. So the thing is, something that we have to have very clear. What do I mean when I say the best designers? Like, I'm not talking about craft, like being a really UI designer, interaction designer. I'm talking about mindset. For me, being the best is not about being the person that can create the best software or the best visual art. So I want to be like the most open-minded, the person who can create like more impact, the person who can uplift as many people as possible. That is what I mean being the best, right? So it's very important to correct that part. So when I went to like South Africa, I was like, yeah, I want to become a reference here because I really like uplifting people, like communities, organizing things, and advancing designers discipline. And I ended up becoming a community leader for a developers community, which had activities in six cities in Africa. So I had a big range in terms of reach. So I've learned a lot about Africa as a continent. I was like, okay, this what I thought was hard actually is easier than I think. So maybe I need something a bit harder, right? But for me to be able to have something harder, I would have to change my environment. So when I went to Europe, I was looking for that. I was looking for an environment where I could find people who can think like me or can think better than me or can teach me something completely different. So I wanted to be in an environment that I didn't know what to expect. So I could learn something new. So that is exactly what I've done when I went to Europe. So I talked to so many people. Met like a lot of random people that I never thought I would meet in my life. Example, there is a guy that I met in a tour in Milan. He created a glasses, like shades, company to sell like in Europe and America. He told me amazing stories. Like I met like completely random people, like, and that gave me a lot of ideas and different insights. And like in those group of people, I end up meeting my two co-founders, like who are doing the world class design conference and school with me. So we kind of align. One of them is from India and the other one is from Russia. We come from a completely different backgrounds, but we clicked. So I end up inviting them to join me to organize the conference, and now we're building the school together. But like the premise here, the most important thing is if you want to go like somewhere, you know that you have kind of upscale yourself. So how do you put yourself in an environment that you find people that kind of have the same level of mentality and ambitions that you have? I think is will be like the biggest takeaway of this part.
So then how did the creation process, the idea process of World Class Designer podcast, conference, and school come about?
Okay, so like I had the idea of the school like for some time now. I can say 4 years. So it took me like some time to actually put in practice because I knew that I still needed the experience necessary to be able to do that like a Pan-African design school. Like 4 years ago, I didn't have the enough experience and network and resources for that. So like the first thing that I had to learn was like manage communities because like I started in Mozambique, created like Mosdevs, which ended up becoming the biggest developers community, created like IXDA, the International Design Association chapter in Maputo, but was a homogeneous group, was people in like who speak Portuguese from Mozambique, and I wanted to create a Pan-African school. So it means that I would have to deal with people who speak different languages, come from different backgrounds, completely different cultures. So that would be a different challenge. So I need to prepare myself for that. So like for the job that I took in South Africa, I ended up having opportunity to learn that. So I've had a chance to like to deal with people from like Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Angola, Tanzania, you name it. I had that in the list. So I was the head of community. So basically, I created a community from scratch, like a developers community from scratch, and I've learned a lot during that process. So after that, I felt that I was ready to start something similar, but for designers because I had enough experience in terms of managing different people, like with different ethnicities and like skills and ambitions and things like that. But uh, I wanted to do something different from a community per se because I knew the challenge that most of designers face because I faced most of them. First of all, like is orientation. So like again, it's not about designers itself. Like I'm not creating a school to teach design to people. I think other people can do that. My goal is to find like the best designers in the continent and uplifting them because the mission by the end of the day is I have a dream so that creating Africa as the continent where you literally have the best designers in the world. Like there is a tweet that I post on my Twitter a few days ago that says people usually say was something like you don't have an African designer in your team. Is your startup even in tech, bro? So basically, I want that to become a standard. So you don't have an African designer in your team. You're really on tech. So it's things like these that I'm trying to create. So for us as a continent, we all know how people treat Africa as a continent. People just neglect us. So the like for me is how can we change that narrative? So we can only change that narrative if we find the best people in the continent in the field, like design, and we promote them, right? If we give them space, if we teach them the right things to do. Example, I have friends like literally all over the world now. I know the head of design of Google, like Twitter, YouTube, JP Morgan Chase, you name it. I know those people. I want more people to be able to say the same. So, example, like I'm organizing events from like weeks from now with the head of design of Lyft Business, and the topic of the event will be how to work on big tech companies. So basically, how do you go for immigration process? Because a lot of people think that to work on those companies, you have to be like super talented designer. That is not enough. So how do you create a network? How do you organize yourself in terms of documentations and all of those things? So like what I want, what I'm trying to create is a generation of African designers that have the skill sets to be able to literally become like world class designers. So is that is what I'm trying to do with the school. So this started with like me writing articles about how do I teach people to become world class designer. So like being honest here, like this whole project world class designers became for a very selfish reason. I wanted to become a world class designer myself. So I was listening to like the Tim Ferriss podcast, and I listened to Maria Sharapova interview. And Maria Sharapova, one of the greatest tennis, like she's in the same club as Serena Williams. Not club as team, like I'm talking about being great. Uh, and I was like, if this is what it takes to become good, I think I can do this. I can become like I can become Maria Sharapova of design. I can be like world class designer literally. So the question that comes next is what do you do, right? So you learn with the best. So I start creating a list of people that I want to learn from. So I start like asking those people for 30 minutes call, 15 minutes call. So what I ended up realizing was too much knowledge for me to keep for myself, right? So instead of like just having random calls with people with questions, I started recording those calls and like after that writing articles about those calls. So I created a series called the World Class Designer Interviews. Like I've posted on Medium at UX Collective channel, which is one of the biggest design channels on Medium. They are now our partners for the World Class Designer School. And after that, like I grew that to the podcast, and that's for the conference and the school that comes, and for the book that I'm writing in the same topic. So it's like this whole thing, the world class designer school conference. It's all about myself. I'm being selfish. So, but is how can I be selfish? Like bringing as many people with me as possible. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. I remember attending the World Class Designer Conference, and I learned so much from the designers who shared. Like Zaki Mafundiko shared, and it was really, really mind opening. African Design Matters by Simon Chawe.
Simon Chow,
Also.
yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's a very bright guy, Simon. He's one of the best designers that we have in the continent.
Yeah, and also the quality of mentors you brought in internationally. I mean, Debbie Millman, who I've been listening to for 10 years, right? So really congratulations on the network you've built as well, and on the way that you're sharing it as well with the community.
Thanks, man. Like Debian was one of my design heroes. Like, was a really like when you say something like, if I get Debian to talk in my conference, I'm done. So when I was talking to Debian, I was like, this is not possible. Did she accept? No way. So like, yeah, it was a very very nice moment for me.
Yeah, incredible. So
And
yeah.
right now the World Class Designer is actually an app that I can use in my phone, right? I'm actually using it right now.
So there is a community, because our idea is with the school. right? We're gonna we're gonna launch. So what we're doing with the school, we're trying to do something different here. So we're gonna take with the conference, we've managed to raise enough money to start the school, right? That was the whole idea of the conference. So we're gonna the idea is to find the best designers in Africa and like put them in the same place. First of all, they have to connect with each other, right? So then if you ask where do these people connect, we need a platform to do that. We don't want to do this in a closed WhatsApp group or Slack group. So we decided to create a community platform for that. So the community, like the world-class community platform, is the place where you're gonna find those people that we're gonna hire. So it's a place that everyone is invited. So like our slogan is the place where you find the best designer in Africa with the world as a guest. So you have the best there and with the world as a guest. So everyone is invited to join us, but the place is created for our students. So yeah.
Awesome. So you first of all, you mentioned you're writing another book, so I'd love to find out about that. And maybe you can go, but going back to Design Sutra, you said that design is like sex. Now, why is that?
Jesus, where did you find that, dude? That is in Portuguese.
Internet.
Okay. Okay. So, like, for me, like with Design Sutra, I wanted to, when I was writing the book, when it was about to publish, I was like, I don't want to create one more design book, one more boring design book, right? What could I do for a book that would make people my age interested in learning? So I was like, sex, obviously. so, so, so what I've tried, and I tried to combine a lot of things in the book. So the thing was about how I've learned design, right? So there is a musician in Mozambique, it's a very famous one, who said in a song, sex, life is like sex. No one teaches you, but you learn, right? No one teaches you how to live, but you learn, right? So I kind of made an analogy with design for myself. No one taught me design, but I've learned. And that code wasn't start working for me on the day that I find this book, the design principles. I was like, what? So I've been suffering all this time, but there is a book here that teaches about design principles. It would have saved me so much time if I had this book on my first year as a designer. So I started making an analogy of the book. I was like, this is like Kama Sutra, but for designers, right? So if no one teaches you, but you learn, Kama Sutra kind of hacks that because it's kind of teach you sex, right? So when I wrote the book, I was like, this is my Kama Sutra, but for design. That's where the Design Sutra name comes from. So it's like no one teaches design, but you can learn, but the book's gonna help you hack design. It's your Kama Sutra for design. And I end up taking that literally because not I, but like I have a friend who worked with me, who was the one who designed the illustrations, and we took the Design Sutra concept literally because the cover it's designed like it's a pencil hands in a very sexy position, and even inside the book. So if you open the page in a physical books, you will see that the image completes like they complete each other with a sex position. So it's gonna make people curious to open the book because they want to see, okay, what is the next position? Because you're gonna have to open the book to be able to see that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when's
Where-
the
where-
English
where?
translation coming out?
So I'm not planning. So the thing is, for English, like for what I've wrote in the book, I think there is enough content in English about design principles. So I don't think I will be adding more value to the industry. That's why I decided to keep the book in Portuguese alone. But on the other side, we almost have no reference in Portuguese on this type of content. So I don't think I'll be translating this one. But on the other side, like the how to become world-class designer, which is the book that I'm gonna be like writing now, because it's a collection of all the interviews I'm doing and all the lessons that I've been learning during my journey. And again, this is how I become a world-class designer, and how can I take as many people as possible with me. And I think that's what's gonna be more relevant content to be available in English. So like the Design Sutra book, the only thing special that the book has are the illustrations, and translating, I don't think it will bring value to the industry itself.
Where can people find the book and how much does it go for?
So the book is $10 and it's available on my website. It's guidionemachava.com. So people can find that. So they're gonna find the link to Gumroad.
Awesome.
So basically on the book, it's a collection of 40 design principles applied to digital product design, but people can use universally. That will make people's life way easier when we talk about like product design. I wish I've learned these lessons like 5 years ago. It would make my life so easy.
I read your article, and going back to the article, you happened to talk about how 2020 was a year where you spend more time with your family and kind of repurpose your bonds with your family. How is that?
So like the coronavirus ended up forcing me to spend more time, because when I was living in South Africa, I was by myself. And coronavirus forced me to come back home, and I ended up spending a lot of time with my family. And that gave me a different perspective of life, because sometimes we just want things, right? We want to be like successful, we want to be ambitious, and we end up like forgetting one of the most important part of life, which is family. And reconnecting with my family was really important. I remember before like coming back to Mozambique, I was starting having depression, because I used to stay like long chunk of times by myself, and that is nice for reflections, but too much time alone can kill you, like literally. I remember that I had to take pills to be able to sleep because of anxiety. I can't explain you why I had anxiety for real, but yeah, but like on the first week I came to Mozambique, I could sleep naturally because I was around people I love. And being able to be close to my family uh, kind of brought to me like the feeling of connectedness that I kind of lost trying to pursue my professional career. And being able to be close to my sister, to my girlfriend, now to my daughter. I have a baby girl now. Like kind of gave me a completely different perspective of life, and what is really important. Because if we don't value people that are around us, if we don't value family, what we are alive for, everything else makes no sense.
True, true.
Yeah.
And so what have your family taught you anything else that you'd like to share in the last 12 months? Or the next thing I was going to ask is, from the next book, have you got any things you'd like to share from the upcoming one that your mentors taught you from industry?
Okay, first of all, there is a quote in Latin that says "Memento mori," so remember you're gonna die. I do use that in my life. I think I used to use that like for a long time, but I think for a few period of time of my life, I ended up forgetting that, because I was pursuing something that was nice, but on the same time, I forgot that I will die eventually, right? And I live memento mori every day. So I try to be as close as possible, the better person as possible to people around me, so I don't have regrets I if I die tomorrow or today. So like living with my family kind of brought the memento mori back to me again. Like I don't want to have regrets. I want to be able to say that I gave you my best while I was alive. Yeah. So and regarding the book, So far, what I've been learning about what it takes to become world-class designer, it's funny because I also thought was craft, because when you see world-class designers, at least myself, I see like Steve Jobs, I see Johnny Ive, right? You see like all these Apple products, super beautiful, and you think you have to be good designer to be able to do that. And what I've been learning from people that I admire, almost no one ever talk about talent or craft. They talk about focus on yourself, building a connection, being a great person, being healthy. I was like, "Wow, what do you guys mean? I'm talking about being a designer here, and you're talking about being a better person. What you guys are talking about?" So like in the beginning, I was a bit confused. I was like, I think these people don't understand what I'm actually asking here. I'm asking about how can I become a world-class designer. I don't want to eat healthy. Like I want to be good. And what I ended up reading was for you to be good, you have to be healthy first. For you to be good, you have to have self-confidence. And I think the book's gonna be more. People are gonna be really disappointed because they're gonna expect, yes, you're gonna have to use Photoshop and AutoCAD and mix with Framer and use Marvel app, and there is nothing related to that in the book. So it's about how can you become a better person? How can you prepare yourself for the challenges? Because one thing that I've learned interviewing all these people is all these tools, they have a short span of life. So they're gonna might be useless in 5 years from now, but what's gonna stay there? It's yourself, it's your confidence, it's your discipline, it's your health. And if you don't take care of that, and everything else is gonna be just useless.
That reminds me of an article you wrote about Gestalt, the theory of the mind, and how in humans the whole is different from the parts. How do you apply this in your writings and your design experience?
Ah, really? You asked me that? Okay. That's a okay. I think you guys did your homework. I'm gonna be more careful next time publishing things. So, like, Gestalt is a design principle that is related to the mind. So, like, something funny about design is people also think that design is about what you put outside, but there is a lot. Design is about perception, right? You basically work with how people understand the world. And Gestalt and like the principles of Gestalt teach you that. So how can you use elements? How can you manipulate the reality around you to create the perception of the time perception, perception of depth, so how can make things more engaging? How can you create the sensation of groupness? How can you separate things? How the brain automatically create like invisible lines, and how can we use that to create like better experience for people? So Gestalts end up teaching us that design has less to do with what you do, but it's more about your intention, right? What you intend to do. So what you intend to do is highly related to how people perceive the world, and Gestalt teaches the other side. So example, how like people put together images and how our brain combine that image, and how can we use that to capture the user attention. So it's like psychology, but related to design. So yeah.
Amazing.
I found it very interesting and it's something I want to go back to and do more research and understand it better. Really, thank you for sharing that.
That's really nice. I think I'm not sure if they published it, but I wrote like more deep Gestalt principle. I wrote one big article that summarized all the principles, but I end up like going like for to all individual Gestalt principles one by one. But honestly, I forgot all of them.
And really, I think one of the reasons I say I got into design is because of the interest in human psychology, right? Everything design is an understanding, even the aesthetic stuff is really trying to understand how human psychology works. So that's a really interesting thought. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So what other principles have you got for yourself as a designer to achieve this world-class designer status?
So far, like I think there is a guy from Brazil who ended up becoming friends. His name is Andre Gurgel. He asked me how did I manage to build this big network of like world-class designers. The first was hard for me to answer that question because sometimes it seems like I've planned everything. I didn't. I think it's mostly related to be a good person and being very honest with people, right? I think people can feel authenticity coming from me and they just connect. And because they can feel that I'm honest, I'm not trying to get anything from there, they willing to help. So one of my mentors, she's a head of design at GP Morgan Chase. She's one of our mentors for the school. She's a Stanford professor. Was the same. I even asked her, "Why are you helping me? Because I don't get it." Like, was she helped us to get like the head of design of SAP uh, as speaker. She helped me to get the like head of design of Oracle and now head of design at JP Morgan Chase in Silicon Valley. Like people from Google. I was like, I asked, literally asked her, why are you doing this? Didn't ask. She was like, I just want to help. I love your mission. I like you, and I want to help you. I was like, okay, please go ahead. So yeah, I think it's about being genuine and show people your intentions, and you have to be true to yourself also. So like for me, every time I try to be someone else, things didn't work. Like they just didn't work. But every time I try to be myself, stop trying to copying people, like things just click.
Were you trying to be someone else when you lost a lot of money 2020? How did that happen? Sorry.
Not necessarily. So like because I am a designer, but I identify as much as I don't like to say it publicly. I feel like I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I see that as my destiny, as my life, which I might end up doing full time anytime soon. And I wanted to be able to build business, but not because I want to be an entrepreneur, because I want to be able to explore things by myself without having to ask for permission and creating value out of that. And I've lost a lot of money like last year trying to do just that, trying to like becoming a business person. And there is a lot of things that I didn't know that I didn't know. So in that process, a lot of money is gone. Yeah.
What did you learn? Sorry, what did you learn in the losing money, and how did that come about?
So what I've learned that in business, marketing is important as your product. So if I had to do things like again, I would actually marketing is more important than your business sometimes, than your product. I mean, if I had go back on time and start my projects doing stuff again, I would invest like more than half of my time promoting things than doing things because and understand it's funny people talk about user-centered design like having the user in the center, but almost I can guarantee you that 98% of the design in the world ignore that because we assume that we know what people want, so we're not going to ask or we're going to pretend that we're going to ask them until you launch a product and no one's used it and you start asking yourself why, right? So they remember the user-centered thing that we talk about. Yeah, you didn't do it, that's why no one is using. So like that is very important. But also marketing, like there is another fallacy that I do believe that it's a fallacy that people say build, they will come. That's false. Might work for a few people, but doesn't work for everyone. So how do you get people to use things that you created? And I've learned that so I wouldn't make that mistake again. So if I had to work in a project, the first question that I'm gonna ask is how much money do you have for marketing? Yeah.
Good. That's again wisdom that 98% of designers need to pick up. And really that thread of communication, community, and collaboration runs throughout everything that you do. You even describe yourself as not an aesthetic designer, but one who makes better collaborations, right? So how does that all fit in for you with what you're doing? The collaboration.
So the collaboration part, I think, comes naturally because I think I like to believe that I'm a good communicator. So I don't think I have to do much. Like I'm really lucky because this is one of the few things in my life that I don't have to put extra hours to learn. I think I just do it. It's easy for me.
Is it something that has always been in you, even growing up as a child, just finding these kind of ways to be with people?
Yes. Like I always see myself as a leader in the group. Like if you put me in a group of people, it's not gonna take long until I start leading the group. It's natural. Yeah.
Good. So what are your plans then for this year with world-class designer and everything else that you're doing and into the future?
So we're gonna launch the school on the upcoming on the few weeks from now. We started this live thing where we're gonna be teaching people how to work in world-class tech companies, like what they actually need to do to get there. So we are also organizing the conference for next year. So this year we did like 24 hours. For next year, we want to do 3 days non-stop. Again, it's gonna be like fun and really hard also because we like the hard part mostly.
Nice. We look
So
forward to that.
yeah. So yeah, we're organizing, and the conference has the same mission, like help us fund the school because we want to educate as many African designers as possible. And I was saying in the beginning that the schools we want to focus first on theory. So it's gonna be like I'm not sure yet because we're still discussing this with my colleagues and mentors. It's gonna be theory on the first 3 months. We provide world-class content for them, like peer-to-peer, no teachers. We do create the environment too, like for them, and then they're gonna be like working with in projects for real world problems for NGOs for like 3 to 4 months, I'm not sure. And then they're gonna be having an internship on those world-class tech companies that are our partners. I can't name names yet, but it's gonna be something cool. People will have opportunity to work. I can tell you if you can name the biggest 10 tech companies, like just out of your head, like people from our schools are gonna be interning them there.
How many students are you looking to work with?
Like so far, we created a space for 25 students, but we're trying to see ways to get more people because we want to make sure that everyone have the same level of opportunity, right? Yeah, because it's a very competitive thing that we're trying to create. As I said again, we're not trying to create quantity, we want quality. We want the 25 to become examples. I want you to be able to have more 25 guests that can talk like I talk like next year.
Awesome. So have you got any messages for, first of all, if there's any information for applications, etc., for people to where to find wcd.school, right? So what
Okay,
else?
so yeah, so for now, they can subscribe to our newsletter on our website, wcd.school, so they can have more information about what's coming. So we're gonna be launching the podcast soon also, like as I said, like 20 episodes out, once off. So like interviews from like world's best designers. But these world's best designers are not only from big tech companies, are people like us, also like people who have like extraordinary experiences, like from places that you don't even imagine. Yeah, so there is the school, the podcast, the book still gonna take some time, and there is the life, right, where we teach like people what actually takes to work on those big companies. Example, I can give you one very specific example. Like for US based America to hire an African, they need to go uh, to the immigration process and pay $30,000 for to get a visa for the employee. And those $30,000, they're not even sure if they're gonna get the visa. So it's a very complicated process, and there is a lot of documents that you need to be able to be qualified eligible to get like the visa, like skills, how proficient are you in English, which country are you coming from. So we know that about how it feels to work at Google from people who work at Google, but we don't know the hiring manager perspective. We're trying to bring this hiring manager perspective, like that legal part that most of the times even the candidate doesn't know that. So we want to bring that to as many people as possible, so it can be so they can have enough information, because having big opportunities is not about talent alone. It's how informed you are also.
Well, Gideon, the future of design is bright. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Adrian, for inviting me. It was a real pleasure to share this with you.
Thank you, Gideon.
Thank you.
Are there some designers from Africa you'd like us to check out?
So, like, yeah, there is quite few designers. Like Simon is one of them. Saki, I'm not sure if you guys know Saki. It's a reference. There is Tosh Juma is from there, like Kenya. There are people from Senegal that I can't remember the name now, because the way it's pronounced. There is a lot of great designers from South Africa. I'm not sure if you saw like Ton the Alarm the talk at the conference. There is one designer from is originally from Zimbabwe, lives in South Africa. One of my favorite. I wasn't supposed to say this, but this was one of my favorite talks at the conference. So yeah, there's a lot of great designers coming from Africa that I think we should pay attention to. So like a lot of good designers from Africa, they are a bit shy because they don't know the value, and we hope to be able to teach them to value themselves properly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, true.
Well, thank you so much, Gideon, for joining us. And that's wcd.school to check out the World Class Designer School and keep up to date with the newsletter.
Yes, and
Thank
once
you.
again, thanks for inviting me. And you guys did actually, I was about to ask you how was your festival weeks ago. I could see that you guys did a really good job there.
We had a lot of
Thank you.
fun. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
We put it out all on YouTube so people can access it. And it was the first time doing fully online. So a lot of different things for us as well. But we really enjoyed it and see the value as well, and kind of having a lot of that digitized content out there for years to come as well, especially if it's things that will be useful for people to come back to.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you. It's amazing to see the amount of things you're doing, so impactful works, and just being able to handle all this stuff. I feel very motivated from your conversation.
Well, thanks for your kind words.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay.